This podcast has been brought to you by Voyager's World. We are building the most amazing hospitality network. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.
All right, we can start now.
Okay.
Sir, what's your name?
I'm Glenn Lewis.
Glenn Lewis. Definitely not the first podcast, but this is the first podcast with a lot of new equipment. So we are testing everything new. The sound should be amazing. The cameras are good. Even you should look good this time.
All right.
All right. So please tell us a little bit about you. You know, I know you very little. You just arrived here yesterday, so pretend that I don't know you at all and tell me about you.
What do you want? Do you want the 5 to 10 second version, the 5-minute version?
The elevator speech, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a photographer. I'm a landscape wildlife travel photographer. I grew up in Colorado and ended up living overseas for about 8 years, working odd jobs, kind of trying to figure out my life, and came back home to the States in July of last year. Last year? Yeah, I guess a year. Mm-hmm. No, 2 years ago now. It's January.
Okay.
So I've been home about a year and a half. Came home to kind of try and be a grown-up for the first time and have a real job, and I'm trying to make the photography thing work out.
Mm-hmm. How is that going on? Like, how is that working out, being grown up?
I don't know yet. Like, if I'm honest with myself, I was having more fun when I was just having stupid jobs and like waiting tables and not really caring and not really taking anything very seriously and living in different countries and just like concentrating on enjoying myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that would have gotten old if I'd have continued doing that for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm doing will enable me to, hopefully, in the not too distant future, be able to do some more of that type of fun stuff again. Go out and do some more traveling and have it actually pay for itself instead of having to wait tables and teach English and whatever else.
Mm-hmm. So where did you go? Not just out of US, but also in America. Where have you been?
So I did a semester abroad on a program called Semester at Sea, like my senior year in college. My parents had been trying to get me to go on some kind of semester abroad for the whole time I was in university. And for whatever reason, I don't know, because I was a kid and I was like, no, I'm not doing what my parents tell me. I never did it. And then they finally persuaded me and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this program, Semester at Sea. And I went on the ship and went... goes around the entire world, and you take classes in between stops. You make 10 stops all around the world. You're at each place for like 3 to 5 days. That was really fun. That's when I actually sort of became interested in photography and travel, which are kind of like these days the two things that I'm most interested in, really.
How long is this entire thing?
100 days.
100 days traveling the world by...
It's on a ship. It's like an old retired cruise ship. Okay. And they've turned all the casinos and like all the common area rooms into classrooms. And so they have professors and stuff, and you sign up for classes, and it's really cool.
How old are the people doing this?
It's college students. So I mean, I was maybe the oldest of the students because I was doing it my senior year. I got credits, but none of the credits I got actually applied to my degree because the credits you can earn are like very general classes. It's like, basic anthropology stuff, basic like psychology, travel sort of type courses, a lot of human things. I was studying engineering, and like my classes that I needed to graduate at that point were things like concrete design and stuff like that. So they didn't offer that on the ship, of course.
But that sounds really interesting.
It was really fun.
Different.
It definitely that fueled that's where my interest in travel started, I'd say.
How much is a program like that, like 100 days?
It's comparable to like a normal semester at university. It's comparable to an out-of-state semester and at like a it's expensive because this American college is expensive. It's expensive, but when I did it, that was when gas was really cheap, and a huge portion of your fees go to diesel to drive this. I mean, it's a huge boat. They're spending millions of dollars on gas to get around the world, so like half the budget is for gas. So when I went, it was a lot cheaper than it is now because gas costs so much. Well, I guess it's cheaper again now, but back then it was like half what it is now.
Yeah, no, but you caught me by surprise on that already, because I didn't even know that something like that existed.
Yeah.
It's like the first time that I went to one of these events of couch surfers, and I discovered that people actually travel with just a backpack and almost no money. That was such a shock.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my, they can do that. And I saw this 20-year-old kids traveling the world, going to 50 countries, and I thought, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you discover photography then.
Yeah.
Your love for photography.
Yeah, I became interested in it. Like my best friend that I made on the trip was another guy from Colorado. He went to my rival school. I went to University of Colorado, and we went to Colorado State University. So it's like, Florida State or whatever it is. And there's a big rivalry. But we became good friends, and that was when digital SLRs were pretty new. So we had an early digital SLR, but I thought it was really cool, and we hung out together, and like I got interested in it. And
did you get the Rebel?
Yeah, the Rebel XT. It was like the second.
I bought the first one. I had to pay and be on a waiting list.
Yeah, okay.
And then the store called me one day.
6 megapixels.
I don't remember now, but I was amazed because it was the first DSLR at consumer price.
Yeah.
And the reviews came up. They did a great job marketing that, because all the reviews came up in the magazines and everybody was talking about it. And I thought, wow, I'm going to have one of those. I remember it was like $1,000 or a little more than that.
Was it silver?
It was kind of silver golden on the outside. It was not black. But it was nice. It was a nice camera, SD card, and then plugged to the computer. I was amazed. I just didn't know how to use it.
Did you figure it out?
A little.
Enough to take some pictures.
Enough that I took some pictures that I like. I was doing a lot of indoor photography and some party photography that I would go occasionally to some parties that I like to take photos. And I got this book over here, John Edgeco, new book of photography. And it's a basic book with all the basic techniques and how you... So I was going through the method and learning it. And I realized that it's more or less like music. Like I used to play trumpet and trombone when I was in school. I realized that I could be good, but that was not nearly enough. Just being good is not enough. You have to be excellent, right? So I figured out that with a DSLR, it was easy to be good, but getting excellent would take a long time, just like everything else, right?
Yeah.
So it became more and more obvious to me that me with that camera was all right because I already had it. But if I knew before that the learning curve of being a photographer, not the learning curve of the camera. The camera is easy to understand. But the learning curve of being a good photographer was going to be, everything else was going to be really steep. So I thought, okay, all right, I'll keep using this. I'll see where it goes. And not even 2 years later, I got a lot of things stolen from my car. And one of the things that went was the camera. And I decided to not replace it. I thought, me with a new DSLR, it's a monkey with a laptop. It's not going to be much better than what a good small point and shoot camera does. And then now I got an iPhone, like a new. Today you saw my old iPhone. I ordered a new one. But sometimes I play with other people's iPhones, with like iPhone 6 or newer.
Whatever the new one is.
The quality is amazing, for the amount of thinking that you give to it, which is nothing, right? To just point and shoot. to me, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
you know?
those. I mean, phone cameras are fantastic these days.
I'm not pretending to be doing, professional quality photography, but even I think that factor, the learning curve factor, became even more evident when a friend of mine from New York, he is a professional photographer in a style that is not too far from yours, and we were on the beach, and I asked. I wanted to take a photo on the beach, like just instead of doing a selfie, just ask, can you take the photo for me? And he said, and he gave me my phone back. Said, no, don't worry, I'll take it with my camera. And he took a point and shoot little Sony camera, a crappy little thing. And he said, okay, stay like this, stay like that. Took the photo. And he's not even a people photographer. He usually photographs landscapes. Yeah. That photo is the best photo of myself that I have. It's by far right.
Well, don't ask me to do that because even
though he had just a simple camera, but he knew how to use it so well that he was like that. Took the photo. Little $100 camera. Okay, and that made it even more evident that the training is so much more important.
Yeah,
the experience.
Yeah, same with anything. I mean, put a race car driver behind the seat of a Miata or something. They're probably going to be able to drive it pretty quickly. Versus if you put me in the seat of a race car, I'll crash and die.
Yes, exactly. So that became very evident, and then I abandoned the DSLR idea for now. And now I just got a newer iPhone. Okay. I thought, okay, that's good for my purposes.
If you're not printing huge pictures, honestly, there's no reason for anyone to have anything other than a phone camera these days. I mean, they're so good.
Yeah, and this is the last phone that I'm buying that is not waterproof. So I still bought the iPhone 6 because it's a cheaper model now that the iPhone 7 is out. I can get the 6 for a very good price, but that's the last phone that I have that is not waterproof.
I have some stories that leading up to that.
I lost a bunch of phones, and I run, with the hashers, drinking beer and running and all that, and we cross rivers and we run in the rain, and I ride my motorcycle with my phone on the dashboard. So now I'm saving the old phone to be used just as GPS. Okay, and then I keep the new phone protected.
Will you have to pay for 2 full phone?
No, I don't even need to use a plan or anything. I just use the TomTom on the phone. Okay. I have the TomTom software, and it has all the maps and everything. So you just use the GPS, which doesn't cost anything. Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. So I don't need to have a SIM card or anything. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That solves the problem.
There you go.
So that's my experience with cameras. But I get interested in these podcasts. We end up talking about anything. But usually I am curious first about 2 things, about the places that people go and then the stories they have about it and how they make it work, right? Because everybody finds a different way, so it's not very transferable knowledge, but it is inspiring. Someone may see how you understand how you did it, and they may not be able to do similar, but they will be inspired to do it their own way. So how did you pay for this?
So the first place I went, I had did I already say it? I had a bit of a quarter life crisis when I was 25. And I'd been talking about moving overseas for basically since I graduated. I was I'm going to go live in New Zealand. I'm going to go travel around the world for a while. And I had graduated with an engineering degree, and I was doing engineering in Denver for about a year and a half. And I was just talking the whole time, I can't wait to do this, but I wasn't taking any steps towards actually doing that. And in the meantime, I was just acquiring things. I had an apartment, and I was getting furniture, and and it's becoming increasingly difficult for that to even conceptually work for me to quit and go overseas. And I got kind of drunk at a friend's Christmas party and bought a non-refundable one-way ticket to New Zealand. for like 4 months later, because I went on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. And I mean, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I bought it was non-refundable. It was one way, and I ended up telling my boss like a month later. I was like, I'm moving to New Zealand for a while. I might be coming back. I don't know. And when I left, I didn't really know how long I was going to be gone, what I was going to be doing. But I left with like about $10,000 that I managed to save and put aside for travels. And then I just worked. When I got to New Zealand, the first thing I did was I bought like a beater car, bought a Honda Civic for like $600. And I kind of lived out of that for about a month. And then I got a job at a ski resort, and I did that for about 3 months. I was like a chairlift operator. It was a pretty good job. I got to snowboard every day and get paid minimum wage, but minimum wage in New Zealand is like a living wage. And when I finished up in New Zealand, I was like, well, I've always kind of wanted to learn to surf, and Australia's right over there. I'm going to go to Australia. And I did the same thing. I moved to Australia, bought a beater car, spent a few months living out of that, and then had to get a job. And you know, my plan was a lot of people at that time, I don't know if this is what people still do, but at that time a lot of people would go there and pick fruit, because it actually pays pretty well. They pay you like by the pound or whatever, and if you work real hard, you can make decent money at it. That was my objective. I didn't do it.
But the picking fruit thing actually apparently is becoming more popular.
Is it?
With the internet, and I was talking to a friend, and I did a podcast with him that he told me about his experience in France, picking grapes during the season and all that, and the pay was very good for, you know, it's not easy work, but it was like 5-6 hours a day, but it was hard. But he was living in a farm in France, great food, great wine, and the money was good. And the entire thing is just like 2 months or 3 months, so it was very seasonal. So for the purpose of his trips, it was perfect. You know, he really liked the experience. And I think that now, because of all the woofing and all the you know, workaway systems and some others that we use, I believe it's becoming more popular.
Could be. I mean, there's always something, you know. Well, my impression for me, there has always been something. I've been able to find a way to get by. And some of it is just dumb luck. Some of it is working for it. The first place I ended up living in Australia, I rolled into the town and my car was like smoking and not doing very well. And I was like, and I thought I had a lot more money in my checking account than I did. And I checked my account and I had like $200. And I ended up staying at this hostel. And like the first day there, I was talking with the owners, and I was like, I need to find some kind of work here. And they're like, well, you can stay here for free if you'll drive the bus for us. And so I ended up driving their bus for like a few months, and it's only like 3 days a week, and it was only like, I don't know, 5 hours a day. And I just drive like 2 miles from the hostel to the bus station in town, pick people up, take them to the hostel. And
do that a few hours a day? A few times a day?
And when there was no one there, I mean, it was like there was a schedule, so I didn't just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. There was a schedule. I had to be there at this time and be here at this time. But there was a lot of spare time. So like, if I got there and there wasn't anyone there, I could like chill out on the beach for half an hour, read a book, before I'd drive again.
I remember that is a thing that I really like about this kind of job. I remember one day talking to an operator of these drawbridges in Miami. So he has to open the bridge not more frequently than every 30 minutes. It's one of those bridges that the boat has to wait for the top of the hour, the bottom of the hour, and then they can ask and the bridge will open. And so for 30 minutes or 25 minutes, let's say, he had nothing to do. And then he would work for, and pay attention, check everything, open the bridge and close it. In 6-10 minutes, he was done. And then he had again 25 minutes. Times 8 hours a day. and half of his shift was at night, in which they open every 45 minutes, something like it, or every hour.
Yeah.
So he was doing that and watching TV. And I asked him, so how long are you working this job? So, I'm doing this for 8 years. So, and what do you do with all this time? So, watch TV.
You could like earn a degree.
I was thinking you could get 3 degrees during that time. During those periods, you could read 1 million books. You could do college twice, just on those intervals. You could get online and start an online business.
Have you had some jobs like that before?
No, I rarely had jobs, but I was thinking if I was looking for something to do just to make some money, I would try to get something that I have a lot of time that I don't need to do anything in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
So I could read, I could catch up with all the reading, all the online work. I could do, if I was interested in a degree, then I would go for that.
Learn another language.
Or learn another language. Exactly. There are so much. And the guy's watching TV.
Now, granted, there's a lot of cool stuff on TV these days, but not that much.
8 years of TV. Okay. And I was thinking, this guy will never go anywhere. Because he doesn't have the attitude yet.
Yeah.
It's not the job, it's not the money, it's not the economics, it's not Obama or Trump or anything. It's him, right?
Yeah.
In my view, wasted a great opportunity. So you did that, drove the bus.
Did that until I saved up enough money to. I worked at another restaurant. I worked at a restaurant there, a little Greek restaurant for under minimum wage, because the town I was living in is like real popular with backpackers, so they can basically hire you for nothing because there's so much demand for work.
Candidates, yeah.
Yeah, so I got paid cash, but under minimum wage, but it was fine because my cost of living was almost nothing. And I saved up enough money to buy a van. I ended up living in that van for about a year after I quit all my jobs in this town and traveled around the rest of Australia.
Did you go all around it?
Yeah. In 2 sections.
How's the drive? I'm thinking of doing this one day. Bringing
great.
a motorcycle and driving around it. But what do I compare it with? You have been to America too, because you're from Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you know America more or less. How does it compare to driving around Australia?
There's the population of Australia is like 30 million people, and the population of the U.S. is like 300 million people. So there's 1/10 of the population. That's the biggest difference. Is like the East Coast, I think, is like 75% of the population too. So once you leave the East Coast, it's a lot of nothing, and it's really cool. Actually, like I love that. There's sections where there's no towns for like 1,000 miles, and you have to get gas at roadhouses, and it's just like a hotel. It's not even a hotel. It's like a motel, I guess. I don't know. They're like little crappy places you can rent a room, and it's got gas, and maybe like a restaurant and like a little kind of convenience store shop. Sometimes like they'll
like a trading post, more or less.
It's weird. It's like taking a step back in time, kind of
like a Western movie.
Yeah, I don't remember if they have TV or internet or anything. I never stayed at one. They're cool though. It's an interesting experience, and I love that drive.
It is more remote than anywhere in the US.
Oh yeah. Than anywhere in the US.
I don't think that is anywhere in the US that you go more than 90 something miles without seeing a gas station.
Yeah, it definitely is. Maybe like once you get off the main roads in Alaska, perhaps.
Oh, yeah,
maybe like some sections in Kansas or Texas.
I was thinking the 48 states.
There's some emptiness in Texas, maybe.
No, but I went through that emptiness. It's still every 80 miles, 60 miles, there will be something. Yeah. There will be a little tiny restaurant and where they make some tacos and a little thing, exactly the way you describe, where you can rent a tiny room, or there will be something, and also we have so many, even in West Texas, you have interstates crossing it, and you have, so it's hard. Even in the most remote parts of Texas, it's hard to drive more than an hour without getting into something.
That's probably true.
And in California, the longest part that I went through was between Joshua Tree and Mojave Desert. That is 93 miles of, when you leave 29 Palms, it's 93 miles to the next gas station.
Okay.
Gas station and store, close to the Arizona border.
Yeah.
That's the longest distance with really nothing. And so much that when I did that on foot, and when people see you on the side of the road,
pull over and
they always stop.
Yeah.
Always stop, and because they think it's an emergency. It has to be. This guy
who's walking 93 miles through the desert.
Exactly. So they would always stop and ask if I'm okay. Do I need water? Do I need food?
What do you do for water and stuff? I mean, do you just carry a lot of water?
No. Exactly the opposite. In the desert, that's where you can carry the least, because people stop all the time to offer you water.
Okay.
So actually, when I start from Miami, I was carrying like 2 gallons. Mm-hmm. It's 2 gallons of water. Soon I realized that it was
a lot of waste.
A lot of waste. So I started carrying just 1 gallon, and sometimes I would load a little camel pack. Mm-hmm. And when I got into Texas, I realized I don't even need this. I just started loading like 2 bottles. That's
and people you just stop. Relied on people that pulled over and you said, I could use some water.
Yeah, and also there are professional crews everywhere, because there are gas lines, there are power lines, there are oil rigs. So there are trucks with the contractors going in every direction all the time. So they see you on the road. And next day they see you 30 miles further. Next day they remember you because they don't see anybody else. Right? So usually the second day when they see you, they stop.
Okay.
And they always tell the same story. Oh yeah, I saw you 30 miles back, and do you need anything? Do you need food, water? Do you need a gun? We have one for you. It's like crazy how people, they get concerned, and they come in very friendly, and they help you in any way you ask.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it happened many times. And by the way, one of the funniest things, that when I was in West Texas and through New Mexico and Arizona, the second time I was counting. I made some statistics about it.
Okay.
About 80%, or 4 out of 5 people that stopped were Mexicans.
4 out of 5?
4 out of 5 were Mexican.
Okay.
So Mexican drivers, immigrants, or kids of immigrants.
Yeah.
And the population there is the Mexicans are not 4 out of 5. They are less than that.
Yeah.
So they were more open to stop and helping a stranger than anybody else.
That.
Wow. Well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was an interesting realization I had. But the contractors, you when you see them on the side of the road, you just ask, can I get some water? Because they have, by the rules of doing business in the desert, safety rules, they have to carry enough water for like 2 days. So they have like, those packs loaded with water, and they bring a round cooler, they fill up with water and ice.
Okay.
So it lasts all day.
Yeah.
They have plenty.
That's cool.
So water was never a problem, except like twice. I ran out of water just twice, and just for a few hours.
Yeah.
One day I was arriving in Castell, that I ran out of water 6 hours before I reached the city. And between where I was and the city, there was no gas station or store or anything.
Yeah.
And actually, about 6 hours. I stopped by a farm. I ran out of water 7 hours before. And after 1 hour, there was a farm. And I stopped there, and they gave me water, and they gave me a Tupperware full of, they cut watermelon and some other thing. But it was excellent for that occasion, right? So eating watermelon and other fruit, but then for the next 6 hours there was nothing, right? And I ran out of water again, and I got to the city really thirsty. It was one of the hottest days too, at the same time, and that place is dry as a fossil.
Good thing you didn't get a nasty cop like in First Blood last night. The movie First Blood last night.
Actually, the nasty cop, like in the movie Rambo, the nasty cop was one of my concerns. Before traveling through the country, I was wondering if that was going to happen, and it didn't. Cool. There were some even cops that you could tell that they are busy and they are having a hard day, and they are not in the best humor, but they were still professional. Even when you could tell that they were, they are not smiling, they are not happy, they don't want to be there. They were still professional.
That's cool.
With me. Probably happens that it helps that I'm white, but I'm not going to suggest that that's why they were. I really presume that they are professional with everybody, and some of them were extra helpful and nice, and they were concerned that that I was traveling on foot, and they wanted to see that you are really okay, like you have what you need, or a couple of them gave me their phone number. If you run into any trouble, you call me. And so I would say most of them were above the call duty. They were nice. I only in almost 3,000 miles going and then 3,000 miles coming back, I only have 2 encounters with people that were assholes. Yeah. One was a guy, I stopped by a house in New Mexico, and there was a lady working in the garden. And I asked her if I saw that there was the garden hose, and I was running out of water again. It was the other occasion that it happened. So, and I said, can I take some water? And she said, oh, of course. Then I went there, and while I was doing this, she went into the kitchen and she brought an orange. And she said, would you like an orange? Oh, thank you so much, And then I said, well, would you mind if I sit down here in the shade? Because they had the only tree in the city, I believe. Because
what time of year was this?
Huh?
What time of year?
That was March, beginning of March. It was very dry. It was not too hot, but it was very dry. And so that I saw a bench under the tree. I said, would you mind if I sit there? She said, no, of course, very nice lady. And I sit there and I got my knife and I was eating the orange. And then her husband arrived. And he already went straight to her and he pointed at me, and she, I guess, from a distance, she was explaining what she was doing. And then he looked at me and he said, she said, he's walking here from Miami. And then he turned to me and looked at me and said, if you walk all the way from Miami, you can walk out of here right now. Then get out of my property. And then I said, all right. Then I just left, right? And I thought, wow, what? I was, and then he was talking to her and he yelled at her. And I was feeling, for a moment, I was feeling really sorry for her. I was feeling, wow, After that, I also thought, she chose him. Fuck it. I don't care. I'm not even feeling sorry for her. Because it's her problem too. So, but I was feeling like, can you imagine being him? It must suck to be that afraid and that,
what's going on in
and being that troubled that you cannot even be gentle or reasonable to a stranger. It must suck, so I felt very, very bad, not for me but for them. Her life is probably a hell that way, and his life is certainly a hell. And I got really concerned about 5 minutes later when I saw his pickup truck getting out of the house and coming to the road in my direction.
Yeah.
No. And I got out of the road and I was ready for a bad encounter. He just drove by and didn't even look at me. And the other situation was in the middle of Texas, in which I walked by some house. It was a really poor, really bad neighborhood that I was walking through. And I didn't know, at some point, I don't remember if my phone, I couldn't figure out how to get to the exact road that I wanted. And I stopped in front of a house where there were this bunch of people, and they were talking to each other like end of the afternoon. And I said, "Excuse me, can someone tell me, which one is this road?" I couldn't see any signs either.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at me, and they went back to talking to each other.
Was it?
That's it.
Weird.
That's it. They saw me talk, and they were talking in English. I could hear them talking.
No,
it's not that it's not that they didn't understand me. No, they understood me. They looked right at me and went back to talking.
Weird.
I thought, wow, that was the weirdest. But to put things in the right perspective, I had these two encounters that I consider mildly bad, okay, because it didn't involve violence or anything. I had another one with dogs that was really bad, but with same people now, right?
Yeah.
So I had two encounters. How many good ones I had? It's in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Right? Stories that I could fill up 5 hours of podcast just telling the great stuff that happened. So to put things in perspective, it was insignificant compared to everything good.
Yeah, I think that's like a valid trend. I mean, I think my experiences line up with that perfectly in other countries as well. Gosh, I've had very few negative encounters. A lot of okay, whatever, no one cares, like things that I don't even remember at all, and then countless great ones where people are very nice. They're concerned about you. They want to help you out. They want to talk to you. Whatever.
Have you been to countries where people don't speak English? Where it's rare.
Have I encountered
No. Did you travel through countries where English is very uncommon?
Yeah.
Right. Let's see if you agree with me. My experience is that if I don't speak their language and they don't speak English, it gets better. It's one of the weirdest things in my experience.
Yeah.
Like especially when I was in Eastern Europe, where very few people were speaking English. I have some of the best stories from there.
Oh yeah, stories wise for sure. I love that.
And people helping and they are not understanding you and they try to figure it out anyway.
Yeah.
Or they help you. One of the most complicated was one day I managed to fix my motorcycle with the help of a mechanic that didn't speak a word of English. All right, explaining the technical thing, the motorcycle thing.
You knew what was wrong?
I knew more or less what was wrong, but he was a mechanic.
Yeah.
So he examined that and then he figured out, but he couldn't tell me how to fix it. He ended up fixing it himself. And I helped it. But every tool, every piece, every part, every material required gestures and and communicating. How do you say? Do you have a torque wrench? Without language, right?
Yeah.
It was one of the best experiences ever. And I happened to stop on the side of the road a couple times also to help other bikers that they didn't speak any English, but so they said, "Oh, I need something like this," and then they pointed the thing and said, "Okay, I get that," and then I gave them the tool. But to me now, not knowing the language of a country is no obstacle at all. Not at all.
I like two different types of travel, but one thing I really like is going to places where I don't know what the hell's going on. No one speaks English. You wake up and it's an adventure just trying to get some food or that's so fun, right? When you just have to figure it all out.
When I go to the supermarket, I usually know what most things are easy to find, but sometimes you're looking for something you can't figure out, right? Then I usually when I go, I already take with me on the phone photos of
smart.
everything that I want to buy. So, for instance, I remember being in Hungary once, trying to buy shrimp. And I was not finding it, and I want a frozen shrimp. How do you explain shrimp? No, I had a photo, so I just showed it to anybody. Didn't even know who works here, who doesn't. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I just went to somebody, and I said, "Can you help me find this?" And the lady looked at it. She said, "Yeah, come over," and she took me to the area where the shrimp were. So it works. You don't need a language.
Yeah, it's true. And those are some of the most fun interactions, frankly.
So after Australia, then so you traveled through Australia, then
I spent another 7 months out west in Perth. I really liked Western Australia, and I mean, it seems in my mind that Australia has kind of the southeast with Sydney and Melbourne and like just the big cities, and then there's like everything else. And I really liked everything else more than I liked the southeast because of what we were talking about earlier, just the emptiness of it. It's the solitude. It's a pretty unusual experience. It's hard to get that anywhere else. Anyway, so I finished up my travels in Australia in Tasmania, which was really cool.
South end of it, right?
Yeah, it's the little island off the south of Melbourne. And it was really cool. It was like a miniature New Zealand. It didn't feel as much like Australia as it felt like New Zealand again to me. But that was cool. My parents then came out. My parents had retired like a couple months before that, and they came out and spent like 2 weeks with me at that time. And then they bought my van from me, and they drove around the country in the next 3 months. Yeah. And it was a beater van too. Like, I felt my parents are like, they're kind of old,
I was going to ask how they like your ideas of traveling, but you already answered. They bought your van and did it themselves.
Same thing. They finished their 3 months. They sold it to some probably a German couple, because everyone in Australia is either German or Irish. So sold it to some couple, and they came back home.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I was fine with the van, but my parents, they're not rich, but they can afford a better van than I can afford, and they bought my beater van, and.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out for everyone, but they could have spent a little more and had a better time, I think. Like my current van, I can stand up in. That one is like a regular van. You can't stand up in it. I had a bed in the back. You can't sit up in the bed. You hit your head. Yeah. So
now, for people that are watching this, maybe I'll put a photo later. His minivan is inside in front of the house, impersonating a building over there. It's huge van, tall, and solar panels on the top.
Yeah, and it's my house for the time being.
It's your house, studio, room, storage. It's everything there.
I can stand up in there.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's a big van. I was impressed. Yeah. So Australia.
I had been intending to go straight from Australia to South Korea to go teach English, because I just met a lot of people that had taught English in various countries, especially in East and Southeast Asia. And I kind of wanted to earn some money at that point. And Korea was a very good option you didn't have to be a legitimate teacher. You needed an online certificate, which I went ahead and earned. But I didn't take care of all my paperwork in time. And so my Australia visa ended before I had my Korean visa secured. So I had to go home to Colorado, and it was fine. I hadn't been home in, I don't know, 2.5 years, something like that. I ended up spending the summer in the States. I did a bunch of camping, and I was getting more seriously into photography at this point. So I did a lot of just road trips and camping. Colorado's a great place for that. So.
Great place to photograph too.
Yeah. Went, Utah and Arizona, and then I did a trip up to like the Canadian Rockies through Wyoming and Montana. And then I got my visa and whatnot taken care of and went to South Korea as an English teacher at a hagwon, it's called, which is Korean for academy. And so it's a private school, and it's for like the wealthier kids whose parents after public school send them to like an English academy. So I was a teacher at an English academy. The kids there have it pretty weird. Like the kids work hard. They work a lot of hours. If the parents have enough money, they'll send them to English academy and like math academy and piano academy. So they'll go to school, like public school, at 8 or 9 in the morning or whatever. They finish at 3. And then depending on the day of the week, they might have 2 or 3 more schools to go to learn whatever else. I mean, it's worked. It's paid off for Korea. They went from like one of the poorest countries in the world to where they are now.
But you mean they're hard in the sense that they study a lot, or
yeah,
okay,
they work hard. Yeah, well, I mean, they're still kids. They play around and they.
What ages you're talking about?
I taught, and let's see, they start the kids going to English academy. And I think they do kindergarten, and even before, that's an option. I was teaching 1st through 6th graders. So I'd teach my teaching hours were like 3 to 9 p.m. Pretty reasonable, pretty good. It's not, those hours are not good for living a healthy life when you don't have to get up until noon. It's very easy to stay out late and make unhealthy choices.
Yes. I know my life is like that. I tend to sleep late and sleep until late.
Yeah.
So I need to get myself busy at night. So and very often the time that I'm most inspired to work is after midnight.
I am frequently the same way.
Yeah, the world is quiet. That's when I do most of my editing, most of the coding.
Yeah.
The software development happens in the middle of the night.
I'm the same way, and I don't know why. I take steps to not be that way. I actively try to get my hours good so that I set myself up to get up early and work during the day, but after dinner, I'd work a lot harder for some reason.
I gave up trying to change that. I decided to just embrace it. All right, I just pay a lot more attention to no matter if I'm going to how late I sleep. I try to really give myself 8 hours.
Yeah,
at least.
Me too, actually.
I sleep well, and I pay a lot of attention to what I'm eating then. Because I think that. If I don't sleep well and eat bad food, then I really feel quick. So Korea, but there was one thing that I want to ask you about Korea, but it's also about Australia. When you were there and then you were surrounded by them, what were the stereotypes that got confirmed? Okay, they are the way that I was imagining. That was obvious. I like to ask that because many times people go to countries and they tell me about. It's not just about the stereotypes that are not true. I want to know what are the ones that were true for you.
Yeah.
Right?
So, before I answer that, what are some of the stereotypes you think of for either Australians and/or Koreans?
I don't know. I tend to imagine every Australian as a variation of Crocodile Dundee. And the ones that I meet, they talk, with that beautiful, different but funny accent. And a lot of them drink a lot, and they have a certain forward attitude. Self-resilience.
Okay.
That. They don't fuck around things too much. They see that thing, they go there and they kill it. They do it. They see this thing, they go there and build it. They don't need too much discussion to go and get things done.
Okay.
That's the stereotype that I have.
Yeah. I think that the easiest way for me to summarize how I saw behavior in people in Australia was is a little bit just going back in time. It's still real macho men and got to go work on the truck. And it was just weird. It's like parts of it just felt like stepping back into Mad Men or the 50s or something. It seemed like a little bit more sexist.
It's a big Texas.
Kinda, yeah. It's a bunch of cowboys. But I loved it. Everyone was nice. I had a great time. Stereotypes.
Yeah.
I don't know. When you get to the cool parts of Australia, the trendy places, then the stereotypes are, in my experience, very true. There's like this place called Gold Coast, which is like the LA surf vibe. Maybe kind of like Miami. And everyone's cool and buff and tan and like a little bit of fakiness going on there, it seemed like. And they're like, yeah, let's go to the club, the club. But there's a lot of people there, so there's a big spectrum of behavior in the people.
Yeah. No, but I know that some stereotypes tend to be confirmed with such a majority of people in some countries. Like the gender roles being very different in Eastern Europe. It's evident. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Of course, you meet people that are more Western in that sense, but they are clearly the exception. Yeah, they're clearly. It's not it is a little bit of a macho culture, and they are very, very religious. But interestingly, even in places like Bulgaria and Ukraine and Romania, they are very religious, but in a magical way, it doesn't intrude on public policy too much. There is no separation of church and state, but there is there is no much presence of one into the other either.
It's so strange.
It's just like they don't give the fundamentalist zeal that you see here over there. So they even have like official religion, and people care. They are religious, but they don't impose that on you. They don't talk. They don't ask you. They don't expect you to pay attention.
Is the populace pretty much, is everyone there adherent to whatever the particular version of their religion is in that state? Like
they do predominate.
Is that might be
in percentages?
Right?
In percentages that are very different than here.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere a comment about religion in America, comparing America with England, saying that in England, because they have an official religion, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
And then here, because we have freedom, they have to compete with each other a lot more for your attention. They have to go and be on your face and advertise, and they have to be on the side of the road and put a big sign, so that over the decades made them much more present and aggressive in public life and in your life, and people ask, and in America is the only country that I know where people are very comfortable telling you how bad your choices are because it's not their own, So that is unusual.
That's, I wonder, I mean,
but the Australians and in many other countries, I see some of these stereotypes being very cool. Well, let me tell you one story. There is this girl that came from an Eastern European country that I'm not going to tell which one, but they make great vodka. And she was during a party during the day. It was New Year's Eve, and during the day she was there at lunch telling us some things, and she complained about.
You were in Eastern Europe?
Here. Okay. She was visiting Miami.
Okay.
And she was telling, I hate the stereotypes, how people say that everybody from my country are drunks, and that everybody from my country are alcoholics, and that is so not true. And she was really complaining about it, she was whining about it a lot. And then later we all went to a New Year's Eve party. And at some point, this girl got so wasted that I took a photo of her wasted on the couch and I put that on Facebook. And I said, "You are not helping your cause."
Yeah.
She didn't talk to me after that. I don't know why. It didn't help. But the gender differences are very clear. And if about South Korea, we have this stereotype that they are very good in school. They come here and they excel at math and all that. But have you been to Japan?
I spent like 14 hours there on a layover
14 hours.
Oh,
No,
I spent
you
like
haven't
3
been
days there, like longer ago. But I mean, I haven't spent enough time there to really have any kind of grasp on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand better some of these stereotypes, and of course I try to go to the places myself. So, but I think they are interesting. When I think of South Koreans, I think of someone being very good at at numbers and in school and having been imposed a discipline that makes them good now.
One thing and I don't know how familiar the rest of the world is with this, but like talking about drinking and whatnot, South Koreans drink like crazy. Like if you actually look alcohol consumption per capita, different countries in the world, like it's South Korea is like top 3. They might be number 1.
Really?
Have you ever heard of soju? So soju is like the Korean drink, and it tastes like weak vodka, and it is so cheap. It's basically free. You buy a 12 ounce or like a 500 milliliter bottle of soju at the corner store, and like they have the wall of refrigerators, and every time at least one whole refrigerator brick is full of soju, different brands, different sizes, whatever, and it costs you like $1.25 for 500 milliliters of this stuff. And like the old Korean men just drink it like fish. It's there's a website, check it out later, called blackoutkorea.com.
Blackout Korea.
And it's old Korean men passed out on the street, and there are hundreds of pictures of this.
You got me by surprise with that.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
And I think a big part of the reason for that is that the work stereotype, how hard they work and the hours they work, I think that's largely true. They do work long hours, and they go to work early and they finish late, and it's like, oh, today sucked. I could go drink $2 worth of soju and black out. So, yeah, that happens there a lot.
Yeah, no, I noticed some countries have to deal more than others with problems out of alcohol.
Yeah,
and like in Ukraine, it's epidemic. It's horrible. The human cost of it. I saw some of it in all over Eastern Europe, but in Ukraine, it's really serious.
Yeah,
it's dramatic. How evident it is.
Is it like the vision I had of it in Korea was it probably, I'm sure it is problematic and from a health standpoint and everything, but it didn't seem like that the bad things that come as a result of it here that you see, domestic violence and just violence generally and this kind of stuff, like the bad things that come from alcohol consumption, those don't seem to be as big of a concern there. It seems, and maybe I'm just a dumb foreigner that I just, those things are just they're in my peripheral vision, I have no idea. But those bad things didn't seem as apparent. It just seemed like more like kind of, let's have a good time and everyone's drunk. It just, yeah.
So it was more light.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of that is like, Korea is they're a very first world country. I mean, it's as advanced or more advanced than the U.S. in many parts with many things that are going on. The subway system is like, in Seoul, it's probably the best subway system in the world. Their airports are phenomenal. All the public healthcare is really good. Everything like, everything is very easy.
Yeah. One of the things that I love America, let me paraphrase that first. I love America. It's a funny country. But there is one thing that I really don't like about it, which is the idea of American exceptionalism, And it's very good when Americans travel and they realize that other countries also have good stuff.
I know.
You go to, they say, oh, we have freedom. No, they have freedom in a lot of places.
Almost everyone else.
Yeah, it's a lot of places have a lot of freedom. A lot of places have political systems that are quite reasonable, and and a lot of places have great services, and pretty much every other place has healthcare. So it's I would say America is awesome, but it's not the only awesome place. And for someone with specific interests or may not even be the best place at all. That's why you see Americans going to other countries, traveling a lot, and then deciding to stay there for a while. And doesn't mean they don't like America, but they may very well like another place even more. And I was faced with that question when I was in Ukraine, because I was liking it too much. But it makes sense to be here, and there are things that I want to do that would be better here. Yeah. But if there was the need, or if my plans were slightly different, I would just stay in Eastern Europe. It didn't make sense to come back. Yeah. So we were talking about South Korea, and then off camera we were talking about Colorado. What an interesting place it is, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So South Korea, you went there, taught English.
Yeah. I loved it. From the moment I stepped off the plane, I loved it. I actually lived there on 2 separate occasions. This was the first time I was there, from 2010 to 2011. And it was the first time I'd lived in a non-English speaking country. And it was a little bit weird and intimidating. Like, the very first thing that happened to me was my school's director picked me up at the airport in this minivan that had a GPS screen in the dash, whatever. And I was riding shotgun, and he picked up another girl at the same time who was in the back. And the guy didn't speak a word of English. He was the school director. I thought that they would have sent someone who speaks English.
Let me just explain to the non-Americans. Riding shotgun means that he was on the passenger side.
There we go. So he drove us. He picked us up at this airport that's like 4 or 5 hours from the town that we were going to, where we were going to spend the next year. And it was just surreal. Like, the guy didn't speak any English, and he was like, I don't know whether he was trying to impress us or what, but he was playing like music videos on the screen the whole time, and like talking to us in Korean, and like watching the screen as he was driving. And I was like,
he was driving and watching videos.
Yes, I was like, I'm gonna die. It was my first day in Korea. I didn't die, made it all right. It was a beautiful drive, a lot of mountains and green, and it was cool, but it was like, what is happening? You dropped me off at my apartment, which hadn't been cleaned. It was a total mess. I had arrived. Oh no, he took us straight to school. They told us they were going to take us to our apartments. And I was wearing like terrible, uncomfortable clothes because they wouldn't fit in my bag. So I was wearing like hiking boots and extra sweaters and stuff. He took us to the school. I'm sweaty and gross. Like, I haven't showered in 2 days. I haven't slept in 2 days. And they started like talking to us about what we're going to be doing. And I'm like, I need to sleep. What's going on? Eventually, he takes us to our apartments. I get dropped off at my apartment. It hasn't been cleaned, and there's no toilet paper. And I needed to use the bathroom. So I had to...
use the school books then? Like
I had to take a shower after. That was my first day. But it got improved from there. The teaching was fine. It was cool. The kids are nice, mostly, until they got to 5th or 6th grade, and then they became kind of a little bit jerks. But it was great. Like, I met some tremendous people there, made a lot of good friends. Ended up there for a year. The town I lived in was called Tongyong, and it's, what did they call it? I can't remember. There's something of Korea, and it's like the Bay of Islands or something. There's all these beautiful islands. You can hop on a ferry for like $3, and it'll take you to whatever island you want to go to. These islands have populations of anything from like 3 to like a couple hundred. So they're tiny. They don't have roads. They don't have cars. You walk everywhere on the islands. There's like beaches and hiking trails, little places to go get some fried chicken and lie on the beach, and soju. Lots of soju. That was a really fun year.
Get wasted on soju.
Yeah, for like $2.50 ferry ride and $3 worth of soju, and
Oh my!
and you set up your tent on the beach, and
Then what else?
so I got there at like the end of August, and my birthday was September 8th, and on my birthday weekend, we went to this one particular island. It was really cool, and I was just like, it seemed fake to me how wonderful everything was. I'd never seen bioluminescence in the ocean before, and they had bioluminescence. Like there's these waves crashing on the beach, and as the waves crash, they light up bright glowing blue. And it was just like, I'm sleeping on this beach, it's costing me nothing, I'm hanging out with these awesome, wonderful people, I work 6 hours a day, get paid plenty, like that was a good time.
Good moment, yeah.
Yeah.
Then where else did you go?
While I was in Korea?
No, while you were outside the U.S.
So I spent a year in Korea. After Korea, I saved up money, and for some reason, I still don't know why this is, but I'd always been interested in specifically going to Nepal. And I still don't know why that was. I maybe had some thing as a kid. It's like, oh, Nepal. And it's just always been stuck in my head that I wanted to go to Nepal. And I made good friends with a girl in Korea who was like, yeah, I also been wanting to go to Nepal for a long time. And our contracts ended at the same time. She's an American as well. She taught at a different school than me. My town was small though, so like all the native English speakers like knew each other and were very good friends. Our contracts ended at roughly the same time, and we flew to Nepal, and I ended up spending 4 months there. My original intention was to spend like 1 or 2 months, but I just loved it, and I couldn't tear myself away, and it cost like $30 to extend the visa for another month. And so like when the second month ended, I was like, I'm not ready to go home yet. And so I extended for a month, and then that month ended. I was like, I'm still not ready to move on, and extended for another month. Nepal was really cool. Have you been to Nepal?
No.
You should go.
Never been to Asia yet.
Oh, really? That's like where most of my travels have been.
Yeah, I'm going soon.
If you like, you like running. Do you like hiking?
I like hiking.
Nepal, you would absolutely love.
In Spain, I was doing the Camino de Santiago, and there was only one guy along the way among all the other peregrinos. There was only one guy that I really liked to talk. That he had like these amazing conversations, and he's from Nepal, or lived there a lot, and he wrote a book about it and all that. So, but he was used to hiking up and down mountains all the time, so he could keep a faster pace than I could, Camino, which is flat. So it was too easy for him. But still, I would make an extra effort just to be talking to him, because it was funny.
Was he a Nepali guy?
I don't know where he's from. I still don't understand. Because he explained to me like 3 times, and I still don't understand.
Did he look Nepali?
I would say so.
Okay.
Culturally, at least, apparently he is, and I want to do a podcast with him too. He has a lot of good stories. Yeah, and lives in London and New York, but I don't understand. So I'll do a podcast.
He's a gun runner or something.
Very, very, very interesting. Writer, great writer apparently. Yeah. So yeah, I love hiking, man, and I want to visit Asia a lot. I'll probably do that with my boat when I have it.
Okay, I can't take a boat to Nepal.
No, not to Nepal, but the idea is to, travel around the world, and then, some places I'll just fly or take the train or something like that. Yeah. Like I want to visit, for instance, Colorado. Cannot get there with the boat, right? So I need to leave the boat somewhere and fly in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to go there.
Okay. Yeah, Nepal, it's hard. Nepal to this day might be my favorite country I've ever traveled in. The people were incredible. It's dirt cheap. It's just, the English ability is actually pretty good, but that doesn't keep you from having weird adventures just because it's Nepal, it's isolated. I did 2 treks there. I did 3 treks there. But the first one I did was Annapurna, the Annapurna Circuit, which is like I think it's like a 12-day loop around the Annapurna range of the Himalayas. I think I took 17 days to do it. Did a couple of like little side trips and whatnot. Amazing, beautiful. You leave, everything in Nepal starts in Kathmandu. So like you fly into Kathmandu. Actually, I want to tell a little Kathmandu story because
go ahead.
I had this wallet. The Pulp Fiction, it's the one that says bad motherfucker on it. I had this wallet and I flew into Nepal. What was the deal? In Korea, I had gotten a $50 US like gift from the parent of a student as a going away present. And God, what was the deal? There was something about I had tried to get US money at a Korean bank and wasn't able to or something. And they wouldn't take Korean money when you get to Nepal for your visa, and you couldn't arrange it in advance. You had to get it at the airport when you get there, and they only take I think they took euros and US dollars and maybe yen or something. I don't know, but it was very limited what they did take. And I knew that going in, and I had the $50 in my wallet. And I'm really good about keeping track of my wallet, but somehow on the flight, I took my wallet out of my pocket and left it on the plane. And the airport at Kathmandu is a very small airport. It's a brick building with one runway, and there's no what's it called, a jetway or whatever the thing is that comes up and attaches. There's nothing like that. You walk down the ladder, walk across the tarmac, and then you walk into the building. I made it into the building and was looking for my pocket, no wallet. I still don't know when I took it out of my pocket, but I ran back out onto the tarmac. This is something you can't do in America, right? You're going to get shot by 20 guys. But there was no one there. This is well after dark. I ran towards the plane. Someone finds me. They're like, you can't run across the tarmac to the plane. What are you doing? And they send a guy to go talk to the people on the plane and try to find my wallet. They end up bringing the entire crew out. And I explained what happened, or they had explained, and one of the people had found the wallet and gave it back to me, but the $50 was missing. I mean, it's pretty obvious that person took the $50.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to be you need to give me the $50. And I wasn't about to make them search this poor woman. I'm not going to, if she loses that job, I mean, that's a great job in Nepal. She probably has a house with the floors, and she shouldn't be taking people's money, but I don't want to
you don't ruin her life.
So at that point, I had my wallet back, so that's cool, but I didn't have cash. I couldn't get a visa. And so they let me pass the guard anyway. They're okay, well, you need to go to the ATM because there's an ATM on the first floor, and I started on the second floor, or vice versa. And I went to that ATM, but it was midnight and it's closed off. There's a gate, you can't get to it. And they're okay, well, you need to go to the other ATM. It's outside the airport. And so I walk outside the airport and it's pouring rain. And I walk along pitch dark, there's no lights. And I get to the place where the ATM is, and there's a guy with a gun and a guard dog and a broken ATM. I ended up going back to the visa place. I'm there's nothing I can do. What do I do? And they're all right, leave a credit card, or maybe I left my whole wallet. I don't remember. They were we're going to hold this thing for the night, and you're going to have to take care of this in the morning. And they let me go without a visa. I ended up going to this hotel. Ended up figuring it out with the owner of the hotel. He's an awesome guy. He really helped me out. The next day, he had his driver or whatever, or a taxi driver or something, I don't remember, take me to a bank, get the money taken care of, back to the airport, paid them, got the visas. That was a big mess.
It's very primitive in some places. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's always true with traveling, where the worst experiences make the best stories.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. No. Nobody has a great story about how they just drove to work and everything went as usual. There is no good story on that.
It's no fun.
Yeah. It's always on the exceptions.
Yeah.
So you went to Nepal and out Southeast Asia.
Nepal, I did Annapurna Circuit. That was like 17 days. Did hung out in Kathmandu, and there's another place called Pokhara. And then I went on Everest Base Camp trek, and I actually spent 35 days on that trek because you can do a week extension at the start and at the end if you actually walk to there's a city called Lukla, which is where most people hike from. You take a flight from Kathmandu to Lukla, and then you walk. Gosh, I hope I've got the city correct. From Lukla to Everest Base Camp, and then walk back to Lukla and fly back to Kathmandu. But I walked to Lukla, and then I walked from Lukla up to Everest Base Camp, and did some side trips here and there, and it ended up being 35 days. Didn't shower for 29 days or something straight. I wasn't ever planning on showering every day, but I showered on day 3, and it cost $5, which is more than your bed, breakfast, and dinner combined cost for a cold shower. And I was like, and
you can improvise that yourself. You can just buy water and do it.
Yeah, kind of. And the other thing is then you, half an hour after the shower, you're just as sweaty and gross as you were right before the shower. And it's there is no point to this. I'm just not going to shower anymore. So I didn't shower for 30 days.
You probably smell lovely after a month without a shower.
The thing is,
in Kathmandu.
Yeah, that was the first order of business back in semi-civilization. But yeah.
Oh my.
I was with my friend Katie this whole time in Nepal, and at Everest Base Camp we were coming down, and then she went ahead of me, and she had a family emergency and had to skedaddle, and she was a day ahead of me at this point, so I didn't know. I was everything's fine, I'm gonna see her again tomorrow, whatever. I got down to town, and she's out of the country. So I was oh, this is weird. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And anyway,
what did I do now?
did what I was going to do anyway, I guess. I finished the hike. I went to... when people think of Nepal, they understandably think of mountains, and that's kind of it. There's also the southern part of Nepal. It's on the border with India. It's really low elevation, and there's jungles and stuff there. And I wanted to see a tiger in the wild, and so I hired a little guy with a bamboo stick, little guy about this tall, 5 feet tall, with a 3 foot long bamboo stick to fight off a tiger, to take me hiking through the national parks to find a tiger. And we found one, and I didn't get a picture because by the time we saw it sleeping on the riverbank, we walked up, and I suddenly, from the corner of my eye, saw this orange thing. I was oh shit, and my adrenaline goes immediately to 100, and I grab my camera, and I have to do this. It's mounted on this thing that I'm carrying with me, and I have to twist it 90 degrees, lift it up, and then look through it. By the time I'd actually gone through those motions, tiger was gone. So I missed my tiger shot in the wild, unfortunately.
That's interesting.
But it's still pretty cool. So that was 4 months in Nepal. At that point, I wasn't sure what I was going to do moving forward. I knew I wanted to... At that point, my goal was to make it to Vietnam, to teach English again there. I'd heard good things about teaching in Vietnam, and I was okay, I'll do that for a year. I went through Cambodia, and I didn't even go to Laos. That's right. I went through Cambodia. Oh, Vietnam. No. Thailand. Flew to Thailand. Ended up spending about 3 weeks there. Then to Cambodia, another couple weeks. Then to Vietnam. Had to teach there. Vietnam was not as fun as I wanted it to be, but it was just because of my financial situation. I was broke as broke can be when I got there, so I couldn't do anything. You know, I had to get a job and catch up on money.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my very best friends was getting married in the U.S. like a couple months after I got to Vietnam, so I had to save up money to get an airplane ticket home for that. So there goes all my money that I just managed to get. Anyway, made it home for the wedding and had decided that I was having kind of fun in Vietnam, but I liked what I had been doing previously in Korea better. I was like, I'll go back to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent summer in Colorado again, did some more camping in the American West, a lot of photography stuff. Went back to Korea. This was 2012, 2011? When was this? This was 2012. Late 2012. To this island called Jeju, which is... It's the furthest south point in Korea. It's, I don't know. South Korea is tiny. It's a 45-minute flight from Seoul, which is in the very north of the country, to the island I lived on, which is south of the furthest south point on the mainland of the country.
So it's a 45 minutes from top to bottom of the country.
Yeah, very small. But there's like 40 million people there.
Shit.
Yeah, it's very densely populated. And the thing is, it's mostly uninhabitable. Well, not uninhabitable, but like it's mostly mountains. So it's large population centers. Seoul is 20 million people. That's half the population in one city.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, not Seoul, Jeju. That's where I ended up living. It was really cool. There's an island. You could drive around it in one long day. It's about, I don't know, 60 miles east to west, 40 miles north to south. It's an old volcano. The mountain volcano is called Halasan. It's the highest point in South Korea. It's like 2,000 meters high. But it's cool. They call it the Hawaii of Korea because there are palm trees there. But it snows in the winter, so it's not
that warm.
No, it's hot in the summer, but in the winter it's pretty chilly.
So in all this time you were photographed, Nepal.
Yeah, and I wasn't making money at that point. It was just my motivations for traveling were partially inspired by my interest in photography. So, when I was hiking around Nepal, I was walking around with 2 cameras and a tripod and a backpack full of camera gear and whatever else. I was decked out like a pro.
It's a lot of gear, yeah.
Yeah. But I wasn't making money at it. It was just a hobby, a passion of mine, and that's how I've managed to build up my portfolio. My portfolio is largely stuff. At this point, it's mostly stuff from before I was, air quotes, professional photographer.
Yeah. So, you accumulated a lot of good material first.
Yeah, exactly.
And then decide to make money.
Yeah. And that was actually...
And how is it working out? Like, is it going well? Are you going in the direction that you want?
It's really early in the year for me to give a good answer, but I think so. So I came home in the middle of 2015. So I finished Korea and came back to the U.S. in the middle of 2015 with the goal of this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be a professional photographer. Whatever. That's what I want to do. And immediately upon getting home, I went on a big trip with my parents. We went to the eastern Canadian provinces and then down the East Coast and then down through the American Southeast and down to Texas and then back to Colorado. Spent like 3 months doing that. It was really cool. My parents have like an RV, so we were all in there. It's not a big RV, so it's a little bit tight.
Did they do this kind of thing before that trip to Australia?
They bought the RV after that, but they'd been intending to do that anyway. I don't think the Australia trip really influenced their decision to do that. It's something they'd been planning on doing anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, I got back and then that took me roughly to 2016. Last year, I spent the last year. I wish I knew the best way to actually move from not being a professional photographer to being a successful professional photographer. I'm sure there's a lot of ways to get there.
There are many ways for sure. That's what makes it more complicated.
Yeah, and what I've ended up doing on my means of making money right now is going to art shows and selling pictures. And 2016, I was well aware that I was going to lose money because it's my first year and I had a lot of money to spend. And so, I lost a lot of money in 2016 just kind of getting my inventory where I needed it to be, getting my van, getting it set up, getting to where I needed to be so that I can make money in 2017. So I've only done 3 shows this year, and I've had 2 bad weather shows. So I think I've done everything correctly, and at this point, it's just a matter of
now you need to execute it and wait. Yeah. So usually I ask people about how they do it, what is their motivation, and you went over that pretty well, because I'm looking for information that is useful for others. So sometimes they imagine there are a lot of people that have a passion for something and they imagine that there must be a way to make this something that I can use to travel, that I can travel and do it. And I have other friends that are photographers and they figured out. One, you saw the book, this lady that she's from New York now. I have a friend that he travels on his Jeep and takes photographs and he's selling.
Yeah, I want you to share his website with me when
Yes, I'll introduce you guys. Because I see a lot in common on the way that you guys are exploring the possibilities of it, and he's choosing a venue or a strategy that is very different than yours, that worked very well for him because he is very well connected into his county in New York. So he takes photos of that place and he really explored the events and all that are specific to that county. And now he discovered that there are people that used to live there or that they are from there and they are all over the world and they keep inviting him to go visit them now.
Wow.
So even though he's traveling to other countries, he's traveling to visit people that are from there, from his hometown.
That's cool.
So it's a very interesting way that he found to be global and local.
Yeah.
But local at the same time. I'm really looking forward to see how this plays out because it's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
His name is John Fisher. I'm going to introduce you to him.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and we did a podcast too already, so it's nice to watch.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah. So when you sent a culture request to stay here, and I look at the description of what you do, I got curious because of that, because of the photography and the fact that you are traveling and couch surfing and and visiting people. I find that fascinating. I just wish more people did this, with whatever passion they have. I wish more people just travel any way they can.
I agree. When I first started, I just shared the story, but it was a drunk decision that ultimately led to it. It's led to some of the coolest things that have ever happened to me, without a doubt. My other option was I'd still be an engineer. I'd be sitting in my desk in Denver right now. And
most people are waiting for everything to be planned and prepared and perfect, right? They have an idea of what would be a perfect travel plan. Yeah. And that perfect travel plan is not nearly as good as what you experience.
Absolutely. There's no fun if everything's perfect.
Exactly. Just by adapting to the situation and discovering what's out there, sometimes we get better.
Absolutely.
Better than anybody does in the tour, or being a tourist, or things like that. And there are a lot of people, I'm also discovering that they don't document their travels, even though their travels are awesome. But they are not on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that. They don't do any of it, which is fine. It's okay. I don't document all my travels either. well, now I do most, but not all of it. You know, there are times that I meet people. I don't want to put a camera on their face every time. You know, I don't want them to be shy of talking to me because I'm documenting it every time. You know, so most of the time I don't. And because of that, and because you knew me so little when you arrived, and you agreed to do this, and you trusted my judgment in doing this, even though we haven't met before.
Yeah.
I appreciate your trust, and I appreciate you doing this.
It's been fun. I mean, honestly, you get rid of the cameras, get rid of the mics. Like, this is the same conversation we'd be having, I hope, you know? Like, I love talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything that you would like to tell about what you were doing that you wanted to be on the podcast? One day you'll say, wow, I became a multi-millionaire and it started that day with that podcast.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but who knows?
I do have one little quote that I was thinking about just a few minutes ago, which I think is like really pertinent to traveling, like the long-term travel, the weird kind of travel, not the getting on a bus with a group, but like I think the best way to describe it is that the highs are so much higher than if you live in the bubble and do the normal thing. The lows are a lot lower. I mean, when shit goes wrong, it doesn't kind of go wrong. It goes really wrong. Like, you have some dark days in there, you know? But, I mean, right? Don't you agree? Like, I'm sure when you're walking across the country and suddenly there's a blizzard and oh no, your shoe is missing. Like, you know, you got some nasty times.
Yeah, shit happens. Yeah.
But, man, those highs, like the good times.
Yeah, I remember one day camping. I ran out of food. Couldn't find any place open. There was one place along the way, but it was closed. Then I had to camp in the desert, and it was fine sand. It was windy, and it blew my tent, and all my gear was getting sand inside, and it was going to be sub-freezing temperature at night. And I had to get into the sleeping bag with my bottle of water so it wouldn't freeze, and my toothpaste so it wouldn't freeze. You know, and close the sleeping bag all the way to the top and cover my head and bring my iPad and my iPhone together so they wouldn't get sand inside. And then the tent broke. One of the cables broke. There was not a lot to tie it to. Yeah. And then it started flapping, so the noise was intense. And I thought, shit, everything's going wrong today.
Oh, God.
At least it's not a sandstorm. And that's when the sandstorm started.
Yeah.
So some days are like that.
Those moments, right? Like, and at that moment, that is, you're like yelling. Like, I've been so mad when things go wrong that I am just yelling at the roof. Well, they're usually not a roof. Like, I'm just yelling at the sky, like shaking my fist in useless fury. And now it's funny, you know, like, but man, it sucks when that shit happens. It is not fun.
Some days are difficult.
And then you have the next, well, maybe the next day, I don't know, where, you know, you meet some fantastic people and you get together and you see some cool stuff that you've never knew existed, and some people that don't speak your language invite you into their home and serve you tea and, like, I don't know, whatever. Just cool stuff like that. And it makes those dark times worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Hey.
It was a pleasure having you with us.
Hey, it was good talking to you about all this.
We'll do another podcast in another country, probably.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the efforts of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Voyager's World. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.